All right, I'm here on the north beach of Great Spruce Head Island in Maine, and I'm setting up to paint one of these big rocks that's on the beach. So it's got like seaweed halfway up and a big kind of jetting dark form going vertical. It's pretty nice backdrop by the water. Tide's on its way in. The weather today is a little strange. It was raining when I got up, and then it got sunny as I was leaving to come here, and now it's just gray, overcast, some fog in the distance. So you never know what's going to happen out here. I think I'm going to use sort of a earth tone palette for this. Some burnt sienna and yellow ochre, black and white, and then I might sneak in a little bit of cad yellow here and there. See what is needed. Refresh my palette. If you haven't watched the video about my travel kit, it's worth checking that out, and I go into some more specifics about everything that I have here on the palette. And generally I start out pretty broad with a bigger brush. I need a lot more white paint than that. This color I'm starting with on the paper, it's just some sort of warm tone that I had on a previous day. I think it'll be a good setup here. I'm also wearing my head net because where I'm sitting on the beach, I'm sort of like in that area where the black rotting seaweed is, and that's where all those little gnats like to be. And when I sat down, it stirred them all up. They just crawl all over my face and bite me. I hate it. I really kind of can't concentrate with little critters crawling on my face. I don't know about you. So I'm just sort of blocking in the space around this rock. It's kind of going to be a rock portrait. Like if this was just a big head sitting there. And I know I can't get the color perfect on the first go around, so this is a pretty loose approximation, and it looks really kind of green, but it could be because it's against this really warm ground will make a color appear a little greener. On my palette it looks pretty neutral. It's like sort of blue-green, but then when I put it on the painting, it does really sort of have this minty quality to it. And again, I am just not going to worry about it, because what I want to do is cover everything before I go around making decisions about other things. Not making decisions about other things, but it's like sitting and nitpicking about one color or one element. Just want to knock out some big kind of blocks of things here. It's also locking it in, like, I'm not pre-drawing anything. I'm just looking at these like big shapes that are there, and this is going to help me see what my composition is, as well as establish some color relationships. And because this paint is a little transparent and it dries quickly, and kind of build up these interesting colors fairly quickly. That's going to be big. Just told you I didn't pre-draw anything, but I'm just sort of feeling that out. Listening to the woodpecker that's behind me in the woods. Tap, tap, tap. See, that has to go there. Kind of looking at this in like four elements. There's sort of like this. There's this yellowy, dark seaweed. There's the foreground beach stones. There's the background water, and then there's the big dark rock. So those are kind of like the four basic shapes that I'm looking at to just kind of get this established. And I want to establish the proportions of those four shapes and their basic color relationships before I start trying to make details. And there I just did a little, I'm like mixing it right on the painting. We're gonna have to come back with this light color and kind of cut in and not draw, but kind of redefine the edge of that rock there, I think. These rocks are so interesting to look at, and I find them so difficult to paint because they're kind of like just all these erratic angles, and the light hits them in interesting ways, and they also change color from top to bottom, and it's just full of like interesting little surprises, and they're really abstract, and so you're kind of just making this abstract painting. by looking at something as closely as I can. Oh, and then that has a little bit up there, and then a little cleave here. The rest of that is stuff. Just got so quiet. The water stopped making any sound. Everything is totally still. Wow. Okay. And the waves and the birds started. It was like everything just like held its breath. It was really wild. All right, we're gonna dip back into here. Let's see if we can define this color a little better with a little, sort of have some remnants of ultramarine in the corner there. Mix in a little of that rock color. That's too gray. Some of that blue back in. We need more blue. Got 3 blues in my bag. Ultramarine, cobalt, and phthalo. I don't think I've pulled phthalo out on this Maine trip, but I keep bouncing between ultramarine and cobalt. It's kind of interesting. It's pretty light. So, oh my gosh, it's almost the same. It's going to try just a little darker. So, starting this kind of bigger mass color, I sort of pull it in and then kind of like chip away the edge of the rock here. There's like one piece up here on the upper left that really comes out. Which I like. And tide has already changed this shape a little bit right here. It's like we're just giving the shape a little haircut. This probably will not be the last time that I put a color up here, but it's worth trying to establish a sort of specific shape while we're here. Sort of get rid of some of that underpainting color at the edge, mostly because I don't want that watercolor and the stone color to like touch, not have any of this like orangey underpainting haloing between the two. Makes sense. I'm also not, I realize like I'm kind of picking up a couple different colors on my palette and sort of smearing them around, so they're not it's not like a totally flat color in the background there, which I think is fine because the water is also like flickering kind of between like a lighter color and a darker color. And so I'm almost like simulating that by just letting a couple different colors hit my brush on the palette. It's pretty subtle. I don't know if you'll see it on the camera, but of this a little rock behind here. It's all fuzzy and mossy looking. Seaweedy. It's got a seaweed head. And then it scoots over just a little bit. Cuts in right here. So I kind of, I paint with this little margin around my painting. Just because I like the way the image sort of floats on a big surface when it's finished. And so when I'm kind of doing this first pass, I try to just keep a clean up to the edge and keep a kind of cleanish edge. And then I'll worry about, and I kind of don't worry about it after. So that looks good. So I've established the lightest light. Here's my darkest dark. This warm mass here, and then sort of an average color for the stone pebbles. At the moment, those stone pebbles are just touching the water there, but the tide is going to change that in like 15 minutes. So from here, I'm going to try and just break up these shapes with some more facets of color, but without losing some of the volume of it. I'm going to reload my palette a little bit. I just need a little more black. I kind of like using black in the landscape here in Maine. It's very a lot of contrast right now, especially on these dark rocks. And the black can be a little abusive on the palette. It can like really blow out the color, can kind of desaturate everything. But I think if you're a little cautious with it, it can be really a lot of fun. I'm also, you know what? I'm gonna stick a little cad yellow in here, just sort of as like a backup for punching up that algae just a smidge. All right, so now I think we're ready to go. And I've gone from like a bigger brush to kind of a smaller brush. I'm gonna see what we can do here. So I'm actually gonna come back and visit this edge. Let's do, I think we need two brushes going. One with this little bit of or ochre seaweed. Oh, just started misting. It's gonna rain on me. It's fine. It keeps the paint from drying. Got this like creeping up this one edge. So like another thing is like I'm looking kind of at the architecture of these rocks and thinking like, okay, what can I do to kind of define some of this architecture here? I gotta move that over. Like the volume of these things, but you know, like it's not like I'm not thinking literally about what the rock is. I'm kind of just looking at where there's light and where there's dark, and how does the light of this seaweed sort of meet up with the lights on this darker shape there. Funny little, it like really is like, it's like I'm looking at a Nick Cave sound suit. It's just like covered in this like hair, and it looks like a sort of a shaman figure that's just sat down on the beach and is like waiting for a fish to jump in its mouth. And it's really this like kind of mysterious creature in front of me. I love that. It like it. I mean, the rock. It like because it really is alive. It's covered in life. These rocks are like the trees in the forest that are sort of like homes for thousands of creatures. So I think about that as I'm painting. I'm like a guest in this metropolis of microorganisms on the beach, trying to make a little painting. So that's like starting to do something. That's good. Let's keep moving things around a little bit. At some point here, I'm going to pull out one of my favorite tools, which is a piece of cardboard. Still, like, I'm not making too many sharp edges right here. This is really like pretty broad. It was a bird I've never heard. A broad marks. Relatively unspecific, but trying to get that color good. All right, I like this. But like, I'm thinking about directions. I'm thinking about like scale. Like, are the scales of these shapes that are being established true to what I'm looking at? That is looking a little darker than what's in front of it. So that's something that we can. This is like a weird little hairy foot. That jumps here. We can kind of establish a little bit of this. There's like, so I'm getting to the point where the shapes are sort of settling, and I'm looking at, there's kind of like two different seaweeds on there. The seaweed up here is a little more saturated in color, and it has these like they're like these little water balloons. They're like a string of water balloon pearls, and then this is like a much hairier, kind of longer thing, and it's a slightly darker color. So I'm like reacting to that texture difference, and so I'm starting to put these like little dabs of brush marks, just in response to the texture that I'm seeing, not necessarily to like illustrate exactly what this thing is, but to just, it's like a interesting textural difference between these two surfaces. And so the mark is responding to that. color's not gonna be right. I don't know what that bird is. It's like a loon. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Not a seagull. I don't even see it. Okay. All right, let's see. It sort of looks like it's floating on this. So I'm gonna just, while we're here, I'm gonna kind of pick up some of these colors, and I love painting these stones on the beach because it's like a Mod Podge of different colors, and you can just plop like whatever you want on here, as long as it like kind of stays within this tonality of this sort of like blue gray, and it gives like it's almost like a patterned carpet or something of stones. So like some of these are a little darker. Some of them are a little lighter and more kind of yellowy. You can just kind of, and yeah, already that's like really helped kind of establish what this thing is sitting on. They get like really dark right in this little crevice. Sort of climb up. There is like a kind of diagonal motion to it, where the tidal waves have created these stratas of rock. So I'm kind of mimicking that as well. Well, yeah, I like that. That dark works really nicely, but let's break that up just a little more with a lighter. And then we'll move on. All right, let's see if we can get, like I think the darks are working. Let's see if we can bring some lighter things into it. So here's my favorite tool. It's just this ripped piece of paper from, just gonna rip it down a little more, from one of my sketchbooks. I suppose you could do this with a palette knife, but there's like this nice thing about the paper that's like a little sporadic. It bends, and it's gonna get a little bit. It's gonna get a little floppy as it gets wet, which I like. So I'm kind of playing with like the corners of it or bending it to make it like a little curved, and also the like torn edge of it gives it this nice kind of like texture. You can also sort of tap it. I can like load up the side of it and then just touch it down, and it gives you that like triangular stone quality that these sort of granite shards have. And it can be, this is like totally a decorative painting move. So you don't really want to depend on this all the time, but we're going to paint over it a little bit and sort of like hide it in. I'm also like tapping it with my finger to kind of soften some edges out. So that's good. But I think some of what is going to keep it from being decorative is that, like, if your color is good, your color is like representative of what is there, then that's going to kind of make it work for you. This is almost like Courbet. Courbet would paint rocks with his palette knife, and you'd totally see the palette knife mark, but it just was so convincingly a rock that like worked really nice. Put a little pink in there. So I am mixing it with this piece of cardboard. There isn't pink there. I don't really see pink, but I'm putting pink on my painting anyway. I think pink would be nice. Just to sort of like pop that edge a little bit. All right, what do we have? We have this, I want to pull this Plein. A little lighter. And that was like, this is like too light. So I can always just like, I'm just going to tap it with my finger actually and pull some of it off so it's like kind of transparent. That'll let it dry a little darker. Let's get that color darker before I keep it. And like, oh yeah. I think that's probably pretty good with the cardboard stuff right now. And then that's cool. I like when the color on the cardboard is like multiple colors and then you spread it out and it kind of creates this like sedimentary effect. It's pretty, looks really well. I'm going to just pull it down into this yellow a little bit too. These things. It doesn't hurt to. All right. What do we have next? I'm going to. Then I'm going to sort of carve that up. So like I have this really nice foundation of some different textures, different colors, but I'm going to sort of shape it with brush and sort of clean it, not clean it, but like tighten up a couple shapes here. Just try to splash out there. I haven't seen a harbor seal this trip. So I keep hoping that I would see one, but I don't know if there's a lot of fish in this area or what. I saw some the other day. I think if you depend on the same mark each time, there's like a monotony to that can be really boring. Or like the mark can feel like you're dependent on it and it's like a little kitschy. So, you know, as you play with developing the surfaces of things and you find one mark that works really well, I think it's always helpful to like use it, but then don't overuse it or find a way to kind of like counter it in some way. It's actually really light on top of this rock. Is it lighter than the water? It's not. It's like it's just a little, it's almost the same value as the water behind it. Ah, these flies are biting all the time. Like the top of that rock, it's like slightly rounded. Maybe because it's been worn down a little bit. Whereas like the sides of the rock are very sharp and jagged. So this, it's interesting. This like, it's like very light. Might be some kind of lichen growing on it. That goes down. Like a chipped edge. I am just looking at like what's the edge shape? How does it meet with the water and also like hang over these shadows? This is going to help us find the volume of the rock. It's interesting, the like diagonal, like a really clear diagonal this way and a clear diagonal that way. This, and then the top of the rock is like relatively horizontal. Okay, I like that. This, we can cut that up a little bit more. So here, let me get that, kind of get that watercolor back. I'm gonna try, it's like the top of this rock feels a little shaggy in the painting. I want it to be crispier. And so I'm gonna come in and just sharpen, defining the edge of that top rock, and it's gonna give it like a real strong presence on the painting. This actually comes out. Kind of a diagonal here. Sort of tickling the edge of that rock. To give it, move the edge over, and then that actually goes around this little light edge. And then shapes the behind it. It's like some, you know, I kind of put some gestures with that cardboard down, and now what I'm doing is sort of looking at the shapes of shadow and light a little more specifically and carving out some of the more specific shapes and edges that I'm seeing around those lights. And it's going to help kind of take the rock from feeling like generally like a rock to specifically a rock, in the sense that, like, you know, you can kind of make a generalized painting of a rock and it's believable as a rock, but I want the viewer to look at this and be like, hot stuff. That guy was looking at a very particular rock and not just any rock. You know, like all these little decisions seem very intentional. You know, whether it's the color on each little facet or just these like unique kind of shape combinations. This is why I'm out here on the beach in the light rain, being bit by flies, because I want to to look specifically at a rock that I cannot find anywhere else. And sort of commune with the spirit of the rock. In the sense that, like, you know, by being in front of the thing, you really learn a lot, both as a painter, but also about the rock or about whatever the place is that you're in. I'm here, like, listening to the birds and the waves, the bubble of the seaweed. All of that is informing the feelings I have about this rock. All right, this kind of feels messy, but we're going to move on. We're going to move around the rock. Let's see if we can keep sort of defining some of this stuff here. Defining some more clear sort of shadows. This goes like that, and it totally changes direction right here. Find the way this up the side there. I'm also, like, I thought this looked messy, but I'm not going to keep playing with it. I'm just going to move on over here to something that's less resolved. Because sometimes when you're struggling with a part of a painting, it's like not that part of the painting that's the problem. Sometimes it's just like on the other side of the painting. So it's always good to keep moving around and not like pick at something too much. See, like this, whatever I did here, I think is helping to settle what was bothering me here. I don't really know what it was. It's just a feeling. And so I'm like getting a little bit more clear volume out of this, the totality of the rock. It like feels like it's a volume sort of building towards me, which I really like and want. I have to lift up my... Oh, man. So... to lift up the net on my face just to see this color a little better. There is this, like, warmth to the shadow there. And then it's a little cooler on top. Sort of consciously thinking about my brush mark being a little drier on the rock. So like I'm kind of scratching it almost, and then like sort of sometimes I'll rub it around. Just to sort of keep the like rockiness of it, because there's like other kind of textural elements of the painting that will be like more suited to a wetter, smoother kind of mark. What was I gonna do? I was gonna paint this. That right there. It's like this really clean. my net off, and now the gnats are in my beard. So annoying. I gotta see this color. There's definitely more pleasant places to paint. But I love this place. Alright, there's this one kind of edge that I gotta kind of move it over. So I'm just gonna redefine it with my little cardboard piece there. And I'm gonna chop that up. Oh, that didn't work. Gosh darn it, the flies. Oh my gosh. Alright. That might mean that we need to keep moving. So this is like, it's okay. I wish there was a bit more definition in this one sort of facet that's kind of like poking out at us here. So let me see if I can kind of make that happen. All right, I think that's better. Is there something else I need to pay attention to? I think there's an opportunity here to better define what that is. So there's a slightly lighter, still sort of in the shadow here, but slightly lighter edge. And then wrapping around behind it, it gets a little darker. It's like a darken. It's real cool back there. It's like a lot more saturated in this like crevice. And this bit of contrast that I'm seeing might also help bring that rock forward. If I can kind of, if this shape gets broken up a little bit, it'll be a little less dominating. Sort of let the other bigger pieces kind of come forward. I don't know if I'm really I'm describing what I'm intuiting. You know, when I'm painting by myself and not talking into a camera, I don't say these things out loud. And it's kind of it's a little more autopilot. And I probably work a little faster than what I'm doing right now. That's nice. That kind of builds up there. I also don't usually point at my painting, but I might talk to myself and point at my painting. I don't know. Okay, I like that. There's a little bit of that happening here. There's also like something happening there. This comes down that way. All right, I think stonework is going well. That's feeling like volume. Some nice specificity in there. Now I kind of want to play with the yellow shape a little bit and see what I can accomplish. And then it's almost time to stop. Oh, shoot. That's not good. All right. Stop with the rock. Let's go. Okay, so I like the rock is like pretty chiseled. There's a little bit of inconsistency with how the volumes of the seaweed here feel with that rock volume. So I'm going to see if I can kind of redefine or sort of accentuate some of these lights and darks here. Gosh, that already like helped. May not take much, so I'm kind of just doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that. These marks, this is like wet, drapey seaweed. You know, I really want these marks to feel juicy. There's not much to say about this. I'm just sort of looking where, you know, like where do I see these lighter parts of seaweed? Where do I see some of these other volumes? All right, I think we've done a good job with that. I'm gonna just put some shadows in here. This gets really dark in there, but it also kind of comes out like a little tuft of stuff. Yeah, all right. I like this rock right here. It's like got all this dark underneath it. And it's like a mini version of the big thing. It has these like dangling, juicy, like seaweed testicles. They're like these little balls of like Christmas decorations or something. What was that? Oh, that was me. Oh my gosh, I spooked myself. I moved a rock and it made a sound. It's so quiet on the beach right now, and little sounds like pebbles rolling sounds like an avalanche. Right, that back there needs a little, so I'm actually just watering this paint down. I'm just going to glaze this down. I want it darker, but I don't want brush marks on it, because a brush mark, it's going to like over define that shape. Same with these. We kind of just want those to sit back. Sit back in space. There's this great, like, melting bit of seaweed back here that's been pulled in by the, but it's like floating on the tide. See if a really watery mark will make that happen for me. All right. I want to make it so that this seaweed sort of feels like it's cascading down. So I'm looking at how does the shadowy part of these strands of seaweed sort of define the volume. So like your mark can define both the object and its volume. So I'm thinking about like direction, it's the color of it. It's a little sloppy in there. We can tighten that up. It's like a dark, it really goes so dark right here. Did I already do it? I tried to put that in there. It's a bigger, sort of a bigger triangle of dark. I also know I gotta go back and forth. Like, I'm gonna overdo it with some of this dark, and then I'm gonna come back and like, gotta come back with like a little bit of the stone darkness and sort of define like whatever the edge of this weedy patch is. And then I'll have to come back with like the light color. So just going back and forth. Like I find that the more opportunities to make decisions, often the more resolved it becomes. You know, as long as you don't break up your big masses. Like we still have those shapes established. The light, the dark, the yellow, and this like foreground rocky stuff. It's like starting to get a little muddled, but muddled in the sense that like the colors are getting kind of closer together. But they also kind of are out there. Oh my gosh, my phone's ringing. Who's calling me? Spam call. Spam call on the beach. I have really good signal here on this beach, which I don't get in other parts of this island that I'm on. It's funny. All right. I think this is like a good, this piece right here it's like this whole thing is a big volume. And if I can get that to really like sit nicely together, that I think is going to work. It sort of creeps up from under here. It's like I'm getting the feeling of this rock nicely, like the kind of hairy quality to it. And so I'm starting to ask myself now, like, what do I need to do to like bring it to a spot of resolution where I'm like happy with it. Like, I think if I can get this seaweed to sort of feel like it's sticking to the ground. Oh my gosh, and the tide just ate that. Oh my gosh, do I repaint it? I want to leave it. I'm gonna, I think if I can just sort of trim this up a little bit. This is like why I need to stop, because the light is starting to change a little bit and the tide is starting to eat my rock, and too many things are going to change, and then I'm just going to be like painting in circles, and I'm losing the kind of initial shape and gesture and impression of what I started with. There's sort of a built-in time frame to painting outside, which is part of the fun of it. You know, you got to like make a few quick decisions and sort of stick with it, decide what's important, what needs to be changed, what needs to be held on to, and then you just have to live with whatever decisions you've made in that short period of time. So I've done that. I think what I'm going to do is like run over with the little light. There's this night. I want to just like sharpen up. Back there. And then this is it's actually this sort of darker rock. I just realized I'm hungry too. That doesn't make any sense. Just did. Okay, that's better. Fits. Makes it fit in that corner there. Okay. Maybe I can bring that up just a little bit. Okay. And then I gotta bring this rock, this like edge of this rock just doesn't look quite right from what I just did. So I'm gonna sort of trim that down. Then we gotta move on. All right. Let's see if we can resolve this with a few of these lights here. And the acrylic sinks in a little bit, like it gets a little darker as it dries. So I'm taking that into consideration and starting with a color that's just a little too light, knowing that it will kind of like dim down as it dries. Sometimes sort of ending with a light over the darker kind of middle tones is a nice effect, because like we actually see light being on top. So by creating a highlight sort of as the last mark, that can sometimes really like make a lot of visual sense. It's like a nice little strategy there. These little speckles are sort of all on top. That's working. This feels a little muddled. It's the rock is like a little, there's more rock than seaweed stuff here. And then just let's just bring in some of this Oh yeah, that's nice. It's like finally kind of this sort of found a mark that works nicely for this. Just a really gentle kind of wiggly line. Oh man, these flies are gonna... I don't know if I can get away with doing that everywhere, but sure I'm gonna try. Right. That edge, these sort of like droop down, but I think that's working. A little bit right here, and that'll go behind that rock. And then this sort of goes up a little bit there. This still feels a little funny to me. I think it just needs some really dark. Somebody's doing a campfire again out here. It smells really good. This has this kind of warm, dark brown. I just want to break this up. Let's kind of lay flat a little bit. Oh, nice. Okay, that's working. Oh, geez, that wasn't good. Okay, we'll just blend that in there. Okay. This might be it. I think it's not like, I don't know, I kind of wish I could keep defining things, but because the tide and the light has changed enough, I think this is going to be what it is. But I'm relatively pleased with it at the moment, and we'll see what it looks like when I get it away from what I'm looking at. And we'll see. Get away from these flies. Okay, I think that's good. Thanks for watching.